Hello, and welcome to the This Awesome Life podcast. This is simply a collection of stories that point to purpose. I'm Brandon, and I have an awesome life, but that's not special because you do too. In every episode of This Awesome Life, we'll talk to a friend, we'll listen to their story, and we'll hear about the moments in which God has shown up in their life and pointed them forward in their calling. Today, we're talking to my friend Cedric Hardimon. Cedric is a campus pastor down in Kansas City, Missouri. He loves his family, music, Jesus, and basketball. And fun fact, he's also the chaplain of the Oklahoma City Thunder. Cedric's story shows us that God always has a plan. And even when things don't turn out the way we expected, God is faithful to lead us in our next steps and ultimately towards our purpose. So let's dive in, explore some stories, and celebrate this awesome life. All right. Well, like I said, I am here with my friend Cedric, and man, I'm going to let you, Cedric, I'd love for you to introduce yourself a little bit, tell everybody what you got going on, man. It's good to have you.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Well, of course, I'm here with the Brandon, Mr. Podcast, this awesome podcast, awesome studio, man. I appreciate the opportunity. So, man, what do I got going on? So I live in Kansas City right now, and for those that are listening to this soon, know that the NFL draft's happening. So that's pretty cool. That's happening here. And so we're excited about that. We're excited about what God is doing in Kansas City. Originally from Oklahoma City, but moved here to be a part of a church plant. And I'm grateful for that.
That's awesome, man. My family was just down in Kansas City, and it was a lot of fun. We went to celebrate my daughter's birthday. She just wanted to do like a quick trip. And I discovered for the first time that Capital One cafes are a real thing.
There you go.
I just thought it was like a marketing ploy that the bank did because I'd seen Capital One banks around and I'd never seen one. And then we're in Kansas City and I'm like, that's a real thing. Interesting.
There you go. Yeah. Kansas City, I know there's some things that people say like we're known for the barbecue or, a lot of cheese. Right. But there's a lot of really cool things to do and a lot of cool things they have, even the Capital One Cafe.
There you go. Yeah, not typically something you write home about, I'm sure, but for me, I was just like, weird. So cool, man. Well, again, thanks for being here. And like I said, we talk about, we talk about purpose here on this podcast. I believe that our stories actually point to purpose, and I just love hearing random stories, other people's stories. And so I'd love to hear a story from your life that really helped you kind of discern who God's called you to be and the path that He has before you. So I'll let you take it away, and then we'll talk a little bit about it after.
Yeah, no doubt. I was actually talking to someone earlier today. I got a chance. We're meeting at a college, and so I wore my button up. Don't let you fool you, man. I still got bars. I can still rap. I'm still the guy that connected with you there, Brandon. But we were talking about football, obviously with the draft, and I remember God making it so evident what I was supposed to be doing. So I was a believer. I believed in Christ, but I wanted to play in NFL. Like that was the goal. Like that's what I was like. I remember I was like, this is what I'm going to do. But going into my senior year, I felt like God was calling me to something else. He was calling me to do ministry, actually back in Oklahoma City where I lost my older brother. And so for me, like that was the goal. That's what I was going to do. And but I was fighting it. I was literally running from God, if you will. And so anyway, so I remember going after our senior year. There was about 5 of us that got a chance to run for NFL scouts. So they brought some scouts there. We ran our 40 time 4. And my coach told me this, word for word. He said, man, if you run a 4.4, man, you may actually get drafted. Your film looks good, all that. He said, you run a 4.5, maybe you'll get picked up, maybe not. If you run a 4.6, you're probably done. But he said it jokingly because I haven't been running 4.6s. I've been running 4.4s.
Right.
And I ran 4.6 flat twice. And he kind of, again, he laughed and he's like, it's all right. We can do Canadian football. We'll figure it out. And I just remember it was evident that God was like, you keep running from me, but I got something for you that's much bigger than what you see right now. And so I withdrew from my classes and finished out school in Oklahoma, started doing ministry, and out of nowhere I got a call to be the chaplain for the Oklahoma City Thunder, and that just started a whole new journey for me.
Man, that's so cool. That's so cool. Man, your story resonates with me a lot, man, because I'm like that. I spend a lot of time running from God as well. I wasn't athletically inclined enough to be running towards professional sports career. I was just running, had no idea where I was going.
Yeah, we're all still running,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
for sure, man. But I remember one night pretty distinctly that I was at some point I decided I wanted to be a professional musician. And so I was playing the club scene, like guitar, like I started a band. We were getting some gigs and stuff like that. And then my drummer and the guy that plays keys kind of had a thing that turned out bad, and the band broke up. And I was like, well, that stinks.
Yeah.
And but that still didn't, like, that wasn't enough to like be that signal to change paths, right? So I went hard at like, all right, I'm doing a solo project, no problem. I don't need those guys anyway, right?
Right.
And finally I get a chance, like I get a shot, and there was this bigger band coming to town, and they called me to open for them, and I was like, this is it, man. We're gonna be best friends, and I'm gonna get on that tour bus, and we're gonna head out.
That's awesome.
Cedric, like 5 minutes before my time, I completely lost my voice. And I went up there
out of nowhere.
Out of nowhere. I was fine. Yeah. I was like warming up and stuff, and I could feel it. And I completely lost my voice. I had to like fumble through this set. Sounded like I'd been smoking cigarettes for 40 years, at 22 years old. And right after I finished the set, I stepped off the stage, and I was like, I guess I should probably go to the doctor tomorrow. And before I could get that thought out of my head, I was fine.
Wow.
And I was
that's almost like the scary moment when God moves, where it's God speaking, man. Dang.
Yeah. And I wish I could say that was enough, and like I turned my life around right then, but it still took a little bit more time. But I look back at that day as a day that my life could have been drastically different, Mm-hmm. And so you said that, your coach said that jokingly about the time, the 4.6 time.
Yeah.
You said you were running 4.4s pretty consistently, right?
Right.
And so is that just like a fluke day? Were you running 4.4s again the next day, or do you
No, I mean, it's really what you talked about, like even with the voice. And I know I said, God speaking, but God just giving you a sign that it's like, this isn't it. And it's not even like, it's like when I hear your story about the vocal, it's like, that's not normal. Right. And that's the thing with me running that. It's like, even if I was running consistently 4.6s, to run them both flat, like literally 4.6 flat both times, was an evident sign to me that it was like, one, it's like you don't usually run the same time exactly twice, but then even in that specific time, it was like, man, you're 1/10 of a second off, and I could be like, no, I'm going to get it down, or I could take it as a sign of God speaking, and it was very evident when I left that I definitely felt like somehow, some way, God was in that moment. So
yeah, I think that's definitely true for me as well. And who knows? Like, I don't know that anything would have come from that, right? Obviously, that night for me, or we don't know what would have happened in the draft, right? But at the same time, like, it was such a fluky thing that it's hard not to pay attention to now. And then we even had I had the guy who booked the show, like the club promoter or whatever, was familiar with me, so I wasn't just like a cold call. He'd seen me do play before. And he's like, hey, has that ever happened to you before? And I was like, nope, this would be a first,
Yeah, for sure.
What was your coach's reaction? Was there one, or was he just like, hey, we'll get him next time?
Yeah, I mean, so what got me, it was, I don't know, man. There's so many visuals that, like, after I was running, I looked at the time, it's down on the ground. I looked over at him, and he was walking away, actually. And I can go on to just symbolic of like, I felt a little bit like on an island, and, I'm not trying to over spiritualize it, but it did feel like God was like, man, I've been here the whole time. Like, and I know, I really respect this coach, and I don't think this was his intention, but it did make me just kind of have my eyes open to like, man, the world may love you and hate you the next moment, but man, God, I'm always going to be here with you, and you keep running from me. But I got something for you. And so after that, it was probably the next day, like we started talking, and he was just he knew kind of that same thing. He's like, man, this wasn't like you. It was probably, were you nervous? And, we can still do workouts. And they had a pretty a good communication with Canadian Football League. And so he started talking to me about that, but I already knew what I needed to do.
Yeah, for sure. So it's just more confirmation of like, okay, yeah, this is a thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
So, if you felt like at the end of this thing, like, oh, this is an obvious closed door, what was the experience like? You said you got this call to be the chaplain for the Oklahoma City Thunder. Like, I feel like you probably jumped a little bit from that day to this one, right? Like,
Yeah, for sure.
I think a lot of times we think, oh, well, God closed this door and he opened this one. And so it was a super easy path going forward. And I don't think that was probably your story, right? There's got to be some other like twists and turns maybe. What was it like shifting in that direction?
Yeah. So I did. I definitely just jumped through it because that was the aha moment, and
Right.
but the in between, the desert, whatever you want to call it, man, it was tough, but I knew I was doing the right thing. And so, to your point, so I think I had a few more weeks of school left, but I withdrew from my classes. Instead of finishing a semester, I went back to Oklahoma, where I'm from, and I went to school, and I was like, you know what? And they were like, man, if you would have just finished there, it could have maybe saved you, months of school.
Right.
And it was like, no, I needed to do this. So I started going back to school, obviously not getting a scholarship. So, I've got student loan stuff, and I'm frustrated about that. I'm back in my hometown, didn't finish my degree yet, didn't get to go to NFL, so frustrated about that. But I knew what I was supposed to be doing. So I just was like, I'm still going to serve the church. I'm still going to serve people, serve the community. And I was a part of a church called Council Road Baptist Church. But the point of that is they were really wanting to do new things to reach their community. And so we started a rec ministry, and we started a game prevention program. In the game prevention program, I would ride along with this police officer. And I remember a lot of days he would do Saturday mornings. I'm like, man, I'd love to sleep in, but we'd be at it. We'd drive around, and, he'd get a call about, maybe some kid that, had a weapon at school. And so we'd go have a conversation with this kid and talk to him about, okay, you keep going on this path, this is what's going to happen, or we'd love to have you a part of this ministry. And so, man, there was just the grind of just trying to reach people. And then one day we're doing a ride along, and he said, hey, I'll put your name in for this chaplain role. And I was like, what do you mean chaplain? What is a chaplain? He's like, well, the basketball team needs a chaplain, and I put your name in there to interview for it. And I was like, okay. And so through those different interviews, I got the job. But I tell people that because I make sure that I hit that part of the story when people ask me, like, how did you become a chaplain for an NBA team? It was like I didn't put my resume out. I wasn't looking for job openings. I was serving people right where I was at in the community I was at, and God opened up that door. And so, man, there was definitely some days that I was like, I don't want to get up in the morning. Like, I don't know that I'm making a difference, or, man, did I make the mistake by doing what I feel God called me to do instead of I should have stayed there and did what I wanted to do. But, man, I look back at it, and it was one of those moments that I'm just grateful that I trusted in God.
Yeah, that's so good. I think that it's so important for us to be reminded, like, about serving the people where you're at. I'm sure you get that question on a regular basis, like, oh, how'd you do that? And honestly, I might have asked you that already, or
You didn't. But yeah, but I think it isn't. I mean, because again, I didn't even know that job existed, and so
Right.
you're kind of. I mean, I think it's okay to ask the question of, how do you do you apply for that or whatever? Like, I
Right.
get that, but
Yeah.
man, it was not that at all. Like, I don't, I'm sure I obviously had to fill out paperwork and stuff, but it was not about a resume.
For sure. No, and I think that's the important part here is like, hey, when you serve the people where you're at, God may move you at times, but it's not going to be out of you're going to be going towards something, not from something, right? And so I think that's so important. It's hard to, I think we all want, more leadership influence and things like that. And a lot of times it comes from a healthy place, and sometimes it doesn't come from a healthy place, but the way that we gain influence is through character development, right? And continuing to just, like you said, grind it out and serve God the way that he's called us to serve and do the things he's called us to do. So I think that's super important, man. And I appreciate it. I think, I'm super thankful for your story. You know what I mean? Like just the way that, obviously you've been faithful, and that's what's got you to where you are. So, but you're in Kansas City now, and you are a chaplain for the basketball team in Oklahoma. So lots of traveling back and forth, or
lots of traveling still.
yeah,
for
for
sure.
sure. Nice. Do you hit road games with them, or do you just kind of here and there
Yeah, the
from
way
time to
that it's set
time?
up. Yeah, no, the way it's set up right now, specifically, I know some teams are different, but we're
Yeah.
with the Thunder. My focus is the home games. There's another
Okay.
person who shot him out, Pastor Byron Coleman, who him and myself, we just decide what home games we're going to do, and we come in and lead those. And so
Okay.
we divide those up, and yeah, it's been we have a really good system down. But more importantly, we've connected with the coaches, the players. I mean, honestly, the staff, the arena staff.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
our job is to support whoever we can there.
That's awesome. Do you have any like big wins or anything like that you've seen God really show up through that?
Yeah, no, I really have, and it's been. I mean, I can go on about, man, just what God has done with that, but I think right now probably the biggest thing that sticks out to me is just my kids. Like my kids love basketball, and just being able to be a part of the city in that regard. They get to go to the games.
Yeah.
And there's a couple players and coaches that have spoken to their lives, and they obviously, my kids listen to it because they have a different platform, and
Right.
so it's just been awesome to see the impact I've seen these players and this organization make in the community. It's an incredible community, incredible organization, but what it's meant personally to my life and to my boys and to my family.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Really cool. Well, as we get ready to wrap up, what's something like if somebody's like, man, Cedric, I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know how to figure out what my path forward is. What's something a piece of encouragement or advice you'd give somebody who's really trying to figure out what their next steps are, or who God's created them to be?
Yeah, man, that's an incredible question that I don't even know, man. I'm gonna ask. No, I'm gonna quote, and I don't know if it's exactly. So I'm gonna reference
There you
Dr.
go.
Martin Luther King, and he talked about he's preaching on talking about he was preaching about trusting in God,
Okay.
and he said so often we try to figure out the staircase when God is calling us to take a step.
Hmm.
And I think that's the thing for me. And what I would challenge someone is like, man, what's the next step? What's the step that God's calling you to do right now? Be obedient in that. I think so often we get caught up in, here's what I want to be doing 10 years from now, 20 years from now, and all those dreams. And man, that's great. And to have that vision. But it's like sometimes I just have to stop and ask myself, was I faithful for what God gave me today? Was I faithful with the time I have today, the opportunities I have, the conversations, all that? And so I would just challenge someone to don't get overwhelmed or don't get so far ahead of yourself that you miss what God is doing right now.
Man, that's so good. I love that. Like we try to figure out the staircase when God's calling us to a step. That's good. I'm gonna
Yeah.
write that down.
No,
I'm keeping that one.
that's Dr. Martin Luther
Yeah.
King, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, I appreciate you. Hey, appreciate what you're doing. You
Thanks,
guys, if
man.
you're listening right now, listen to my man Brandon. He's starting something great, great man of God, and I'm really grateful to call you my friend.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate that, and thanks for your time today, dude. I know that, man, this has been a journey trying to connect. It's so hard, schedules and all that good stuff. But I'm grateful that you made the time, and I'm grateful that you're on the show, and just really appreciate your ministry and all that, and your
Yeah, I just
friendship.
got
So
one
thanks, man.
request. One request.
You got it.
Next time you're in Kansas City, you got to hit me up, man. I got to
Yeah, for
take you
sure,
to
man.
some barbecue spots here.
Yeah,
We got some good stuff.
absolutely. I'm sure we'll be back soon. We were there for literally 18 hours. Like we stayed the night and left the
Oh,
next day.
wow.
It was the week of Easter, so I literally had to like sneak out right after work on Thursday. We hung out that night and we got back by 6 o'clock on Friday. So,
Yeah, it
but
was a quick trip. So, yeah.
for sure.
But no,
But
appreciate it, man. Yeah, definitely stay in touch with me, and I'll be listening as well.
for sure. Thanks, Cedric.
Yep.
Hey, Cedric's story reminds us all that God's plans are the best plans, and that his no will always lead us to a better yes. I'm reminded of my own story and how even though God said no to the things I thought I wanted, the place that he was leading me was even better. I can't help but think, what would have happened if I had got everything I wanted, if I had been a musician or if I had been able to go on tour? My life would be so different. But there's nothing about my life now that I would trade for a career in the music business. There's nothing about my life now that I'm willing to give up for what I thought my life would be like. It's not always easy to navigate these seasons. It's not always, the doors don't always fly open. Sometimes it's hard. My path has been very difficult. There have been seasons where I've still felt stuck. There have been seasons where I still wonder if I'm on the right path, and seasons if I wonder if God's really working in my life. And yet, he always shows up right when I need it the most. And I don't know where you are right now or what you're going through, but I'm very encouraged by the quote from Dr. King that Cedric shared. We don't have to figure out the entire staircase. Instead, we just need to take the next step. Is there an area of your life where you feel stuck or confused? I want to encourage you today to just take the next right step forward, and from there, allow God to illuminate the next one. He's faithful to lead us and guide us when we commit to trust and follow him. And so I hope that you found encouragement in that today. I hope that you found encouragement that even if your life isn't on the trajectory that you thought it was going to be or isn't shaping up exactly how you had planned, I hope you know that God is faithful and that he's going to get you through to that next step. Thanks for listening to This Awesome Life. It's a collection of stories that point to purpose. To stay connected with This Awesome Life, check out the show notes. That's where you'll find the This Awesome Life blog and newsletter. You can also find my social media links if you'd like to connect with me there. I'd love to get connected with you. And if you love This Awesome Life, I'd love for you to take a minute to leave us a review. Don't forget to like or follow the show so that you never miss an episode. And once again, thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on This Awesome Life.